We start, Honourable Sokhanyile.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me observe the protocol that you observed in the morning, but give Glenn is here. Greetings to you, Minister. I think I've got few questions. One of the recommendations of the National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council that are reflected on paragraph 17. They talk about the strengthening of the law agencies. That is your bullet number 2 in those recommendations in paragraph 17. Now, with reference to paragraph 18, whereby you have said that you can, at least you can address the above issues. You indicate that the NPA's legislative framework, it needs a comprehensive overhaul, which is needed urgently. Luckily, you didn't say immediately. It urgently needs that comprehensive overhaul. Then, I want to check what is particularly wrong with the legislative framework, this legislative framework of the NPA, and also, and how has it been an obstacle for NPA to fulfill its mandate as provided for by the Constitution? That's the first question.
Thank you, Honourable Member Sokhanyile. So the NACAC report was written when I didn't have any executive responsibility. So this is a matter that will now require consideration by the Minister of Justice.
Can you raise your voice a little bit?
I was saying that it's a matter that the report, the recommendations are clear. They are recommendations which I support in my capacity as the chair of the National Anti-Corruption Council. But I'm indicating that where I'm sitting now, I have to recognize and respect the responsibility of my colleague in the Cabinet, the Minister of Justice. But I will say that what the issue is this. I think that it goes to measures to strengthen the independence of the NPA. Because after all, one of the lessons we've learned is, over the last few years, is that how important it is for prosecutions, the way the institution works, for prosecutions to be impartial and objective, driven only by the law. So this question about how you insulate the institutions that have such responsibilities from undue political interference or other forms of interference is an important question, which in mature systems I think are embedded and easy to manage. Now, the specific question here that we were trying to address is what is the relationship between the DG of Justice, the head of the Department of Justice, and the NPA. Under the current arrangements, the budget of the MPA is the accounting officer is the DG of Justice, of the Justice Department, which means that the NPA doesn't have sufficient control over its budget from institutional terms, and there may also be questions about the ability to recruit the kind of skills that are required. But I know that you know that the presidency has been particularly active. There have been various initiatives to try and strengthen the MPA by giving access to the skills that are required. So that's the issue there. It's about independence, greater independence of the MPA from the Department of Justice, and we came to the conclusion that the current arrangements where the accounting officer is the head of the DG of Justice needs to be looked at. Of course, the recommendations that we've made now need to be considered in a governmental process, and there'll be different perspectives. There'll also be different interests. From a policing point of view, the different agencies often compete for resources, as I say, SIU, IDEC, AFU, and there are always questions about which powers should go where, because with powers and functions goes resources. So sometimes the interests are competing, but those are our recommendations. So what comes out of the governmental process in terms of a final product, because the NECAC was an advisory body, will in some ways possibly be different from what we recommended.
Chair.
Honourable Shongwe.
Thank you very much. Minister, just on this issue of the NPA and I think efforts that have been made to strengthen the capacity of the NPA, what is your view, and I know you'll sidestep and say it's not within your direct purview, but what is your view on the private sector funding for the NPA, which I think at some point, some of it may have been international? Is it not swapping government as an authority and maybe getting into some new masters with interests that we may not know? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I think that's an important question. I mean, where there is, and we've seen this in many areas, where there is elements of state function, one part, at least of the short-term solution, has been to say, well, what resources and capabilities are there in the private sector to support public functions? There is a partnership with the business. There are certain key projects. This is not, as far as I know, one of them that is part of the particular partnership that I have been exposed to, where the focus is mainly on logistics, infrastructure, and there are some important initiatives to improve service delivery at station level and so forth. But this initiative that you're talking about, I'm aware of and was separate from the business partnership that I'm more familiar with. Now, the country has a dilemma, I think, in the short term, at least, where you have state dysfunction and there are capabilities, expertise and resources in the private sector. You want to be able to leverage those resources. That's an arguable case. But if prosecution is to be independent. Prosecutors are to act without fear or favor. Then the improper influence can come from politicians, it can come from the private sector. And so I am definitely not in favor of privatizing the prosecution service. It is preeminently a public function. It must always be exercised on behalf of the people and funded and staffed by its, through that process, not the market. I don't believe that the market has any role in creating systems of investigation, prosecution, and so forth. I think that would be the wrong approach. But I mean, if you have got, as we do have, at least in the short term, private sector partners who are interested in protecting the country's sovereignty, in supporting the government's efforts to strengthen the institutions after the experience we had with state capture and so forth, then we also need to be pragmatic, leverage those resources, but manage the risk. Prosecution has to be independent of all improper influences.
Okay. Minister, you're saying that in paragraph 19, you held various engagements with NPA, IDEC. Then, following those engagements, you saw that you have concluded that the area of DPCI, CI, and IDEC requires a rethink. Can you say what did you observe as weaknesses within DPCI, CI, and IDEC that requires a rethink?
Thank you for the question. I think we were more really concerned with the problem of overlapping mandates, which the evidence leader also pointed to in the discussion earlier about IDEC. Because you will recall that before we had IDEC, and after the Glenister judgments, the DPCI was established as part of the police service, which meant that the investigation of corruption was a policing function. Now, that's why I say I think IDEC was an important reform. The investigation of prosecutions of corruption, criminal corruption, is now housed in the Department of Justice. There are questions about the relationship between IDEC, the DPCI, and the SIU, because as I say, some of the mandates might overlap. So we came to the conclusion that the DPCI's mandate is too broad, and it remains my view. We recommended that the DPCI should be re-engineered as the spearhead of the fight against organized crime. And the SIU, refurbished as the OPI, together with IDEC, should have the main focus around fighting corruption, prevention plus prosecution and investigation. And there, to some extent, I think our recommendations converge with those that Member Breitenbach was concerned about when they made their recommendations for the establishment of an independent agency to investigate and prosecute corruption. Now, in any such arrangement, where we have more than one agency, there are jurisdictional conflicts and potentially, and there are overlapping mandates. So we have said, yes, DPCI should focus all its resources on the fight against organized crime, because that's a growing systemic problem in our society, and corruption, which is equally important, needs a particular focus as well. But there's an overlap, because if you look at, let's say, a certain contract that has been under investigation, a wellness contract by SAPS for a man who's now in jail. How would you characterize that problem? It's organized crime plus it's corruption. So they overlap. So what we then recommended is that there should be a case management system, not simply on a systematic basis to allocate the cases for primary investigation. And at some point in the investigation, it might turn out that the matter that started with DPCI ends up with IDEC because of the corruption element. So we basically, the two basic pillars of our recommendations are the following. One, you've got to focus on prevention and prosecution. And two, you've got to focus both on organized crime and corruption. And you have to create the institutional basis and capabilities to be successful in both overlapping domains. If you look at the DPCI's, currently the DPCI, for instance, they investigate matters referred to it by the Auditor General. Now, some of those matters are very serious, but do you want your main policing organization, an FBI type organization, dealing with such matters referred to it by the Auditor General? So I think its mandate is too broad. And in fact, the Treasury, I noticed in recent communication, the Treasury has also made this observation that the mandates are overlapping, and they are, they duplicate, and that leads to inefficiency and a wastage of resources. So those were our recommendations, but I do want to stress that, there are many ways of solving problems of the kind that we face. There is no blueprint. There's no panacea. So I am not approaching, I don't think about our recommendations in the council. We invested a lot of time and energy, but they are not to be, they are there for public discussion. We went through that process, and now they have to find a path through the decision-making process, through the cabinet subcommittees, and eventually to cabinet. And of course, I hope that in essence, the main elements of the proposals will be accepted and embodied in legislation, properly funded. And it was very pleasing for me that the President said after we presented the report to him that he supported the recommendations. But that doesn't mean that the devil will be in the detail. The report is out there. It's on, and I would encourage members of Parliament to take an interest in what we recommended.
Okay. Then, when you're saying that, this gives me to go to paragraph 26, whereby you are saying that you are thinking ahead. Then, in your thinking ahead, you indicate that IPIT needs to be developed or expanded to investigate procurement matters or supply chain irregularities, as has been found by Auditor General of South Africa. Will this not duplicate or encroach on the work of DPCI and to some extent the SIU. I'm riding on what you have just said now.
Chair, an important question, Member Sokhanyile. So the issue that is addressed here concerns mainly the question whether whether IPID should continue to focus only on individual cases, or whether it should be empowered to make findings where it sees patterns as well, patterns that might be occurring, for instance, in supply chain. And there are many ways, that is an open question. There are many ways to deal with this question about what happens once findings are made. I said earlier that there were many oversight bodies that are making recommendations of this kind, but there isn't a coordinated approach to the implementation. And I would say that the main thrust of our recommendations was that it's the OPI, that is the refurbished SIU, because they already have significant capabilities, as we've seen, to do these investigations and to make findings and to identify malfeasance. So when it comes to problems of supply chain, I think the main body to have the authority to and the responsibility to investigate will be the OPI. But of course, as you see, you know, the portfolio committees deal with such matters as well. So there are many mechanisms through which the oversight process occurs, including IPID. I would not put too much weight on the specific formulation here that it's IPID should be looking at supply chain. I think that is a challenge for reform within the mechanism of supply chain in SAPS. Of course, there are oversight bodies, but one of the things I have to do together with the National Commissioner is look at how to improve probity, accountability, efficiency, and so forth in the procurement of goods and services from the open account. Earlier we were talking about the closed account, but this is a big problem. In the audit, in the portfolio committee, when the annual report was presented, it was clear that this is a matter that needs attention. The Auditor General was asked to give the portfolio committee further information on the specific contracts where they found irregularities. And I will be following that up because I'm also interested in that information. So one of the areas certainly that I hope this committee will come to a conclusion on is on the question, first of all, that there can't be any doubt that the issue of supply chain in SAPS needs serious attention. So that needs reform. That's what lies, that's what lies ahead of us. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Just few questions, 3.
No, look at your time.
Yeah, I know. But when the minister, because when the minister is responding, you want to be explicit in giving the answer, Chairperson.
We don't work like that, Honourable Sokhanyile. You respect the member next to you.
The last one.
Yes.
Thank you. Hey, on the PKTT, Chairperson, in relation to the directive to disestablish the PKTT. You have been given, you are saying that, Minister, in paragraph 43, you have been provided that you are not given reason that convince you that the decision to disestablish the task team was justified. Did you have engagement with Minister Mkhunu on the matter and he gave you his reasons?
No, just let me observe that the last sentence reads, but I was also not in any position to conclude that the decision by my predecessor was obviously wrong. So what I'm saying there is that I didn't have enough information to conclude that the decision was right or wrong. I was in the process of trying to establish the facts as you are today. And at this point, I'm saying I really didn't have that information. Now, I also indicated that I didn't reach out to my predecessor, nor did he to me, to have a normal handover. And that was a deliberate decision by me because I didn't want the police management relationship with...
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The time of the member is up.
Chair?
Can we move to Honourable Nomvalo and Honourable Shongwe? Your time, both of you, ends at 2:30.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon, Minister. Good afternoon, Minister.
Afternoon.
Yeah, I don't know if I heard you correctly, but you were responding to one member here. You said you were worried when General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi was wearing a task force uniform on the 6th of July. Why were you worried?
Yeah, I'm quite comfortable with your uniform. Look, we should have a serious conversation about this matter. You know, democracies are about civilian government, about leadership by elected representatives. In a democratic society, the power to use force is conditionally allocated to a professional policing service that is required to exercise that force, because you and I can't do that, right? Police service has the right to exercise force, to enforce the law with all necessary force, provided it's exercised in a lawful way. There are reasons why we have protocols within a police service, a command structure, supposed to be a disciplined organization. The line of command, the structure of authority in a police service has to be respected, because that is a sine qua non of its ability to function efficiently as a law enforcement agency. That's my first argument. The second is that in a democracy, it's important for a clear separation between political authority and the military, for instance. The military has to understand that they exercise their powers, their incredible powers, subject to the parameters of a civilian state. And that is true also of the law enforcement, the police. Now, when I saw that image, and of course what was being said, and it wasn't just the the military fatigues, but the fact that they were armed and so forth, my initial impression was, what's going on? I mean, is this South Africa? It conjured up images in my mind of a kind of coup d'etat. Now, that's it. So I said, because, you know, I have to be honest about these matters, that was my initial response in my head, and I said so publicly. But I also said that the issues that he raised were extremely important, and that if it turns out that he raised those matters outside of the normal structure of command and discipline in the police service, and without engaging his political principles, if he made those statements, if it turns out to have been correct, and the evidence so far before the Madlanga Commission, not only by the general himself, but also particularly by those 3 witnesses which apparently corroborated what he said, then I would say that there is already sufficient, there is compelling evidence in the public domain which suggests that he was behaving as a whistleblower who should then be protected by the law. Okay?
Yeah.
And in an exceptional situation, in the kind of situation that we are in, conduct outside of the norms, which are themselves constraining access to the truth, may be justified. And I stand by that. And I hope, I'm sure that the Commission will come to conclusions which will clarify that matter. But I think even General Mkwanazi, and I had a very respectful and pleasant engagement with him in the meeting that I had with him, and I said to him, it was an honor for me to meet you. You can ask him that. It's an honor to meet you, because it might well be the case that he has displayed some extraordinary courage, which is what was required in this moment. But it can't itself be a norm in a democracy and in a police service in a democracy. So that's my view. I said it at the time, and I attracted some controversy and some criticism. And I knew that if I repeat that today, the question will be asked. But I think that nothing has happened which requires me, in my view, to change the opinion I expressed, which was not one-sided. I was trying to deal with an issue. I think it's a live issue, and I was trying to deal with it in a way that I think is consistent with what this country is and what it's trying to achieve.
Okay. No. Thank you, Minister.
Can we take Honourable Skosana?
Thank you, Chair. Just to say to the Minister, Prof, I understand. I just want clarity on this matter. You know, when you say what you have now, if there was no commission, Madlanga Commission, hence you always say, as ad hoc committee, we are not a subcommittee of Madlanga Commission. And I think what we are saying now is that if there was no Madlanga Commission, your views would have been different. Can you clarify that?
No, what I'm saying, and this is why, you know, I've also been on record from the very beginning to say that I think the President made the right decision when he appointed the Commission. You will recall that that decision, at least as an initial matter, attracted a lot of criticism. But what do we see happening? The country is watching the Madlanga Commission, and it's watching you. This is how democracies deal with their problems. I'm not only talking about the Madlanga Commission. I'm also talking about what's happening here, the enormous significance of what is happening in Parliament. You know, if I might digress for a minute, when I was in the Gauteng legislature, and I was the speaker. And those were early days. We're trying to build an institution. It was one of my pet projects to try and develop the capacity in the legislature for inquiries, the kind of inquiry that you're conducting today. Because I did feel that oversight should not be limited to oversight over departments. Parliament should have the ability to do what you are doing. And I think the public is rightly invested, you know, in this process, Madlanga and yourself, because it is going to tell us the truth and it's going to help us with the reset. It's not only, it shouldn't be seen, in my view, as a negative process. Now, the fact that the President made his decisions and appointed the Commission, and at the same time Parliament took this initiative, has been serendipitous because it has meant that the issues that General Mkhwanazi raised and the issues that were raised by his decision to have an interview, to do what he did, all of those matters are now subjected to a proper inquiry. Without your inquiry and without the Madlanga Commission, what would we have done with that information? We would have been, the country would have been much more divided. We would not have had a mechanism for coming to productive solutions about the way forward. And to have the conversation we're having about, well, let's forget about the fact that I made those comments, and for the moment about a specific person, General Mkhwanazi. It could be General X in the future. What do we expect in a situation like this? And I think that, as I say, it might turn out that General Mkhwanazi was a whistleblower. Whistleblower deserves public recognition and protection by the law.
Okay, Chair, kindly note that the follow-up question combined with the response has taken my 4 minutes. Minister, me and you agree that the task force is a unit that was established in terms of the legal protocols, correct? So it's a unit which is within the legal framework of SAPS.
As I understand it, it's not part of the structure and establishment at the moment. It's a task team which was set up pursuant to a political decision to deal with a specific problem of undefined duration. I think they didn't apparently make a decision, and they couldn't make a decision to say you'll only exist for 2 months. They had to set up a structure and a system to deal with the problem of political killings. I can't think of anything worse in a democracy when councillors, people who want to serve the public, are murdered. What kind of country is that? So we have to deal with this matter. Government did deal with it, and in fact that structure now continues to exist. And I am pleased about that because, as I've said, I think it's necessary, and in fact I think we needed to have bolder action because I see this as organized crime across the country.
Yeah. So, Minister, if the task force is a legal structure, whether it's a task team or a unit, which is within legally so the framework of SAPS, then why are you becoming worried while crime is rife in South Africa, when police are displaying their strength in front of cameras in uniform? Because the task force is one of the task teams which are well respected or which are feared by criminals. Now, when they go to cameras accompanying their commander in uniform, displaying the strength of the police. Why are you worried? I really don't understand. What is it that precipitates your concern? Because there's nothing, I thought maybe you are going to come with something that we don't know. I thought you are going to say there is this piece of legislation, or there are these norms and standards which don't allow the commissioner to wear the task force uniform in cameras. So it's just your imagination and your general concern. You were just concerned as a citizen, but there is absolutely nothing in terms of the law that prohibits the commissioner from wearing a task force uniform with his team in front of cameras.
So I will repeat, I think in a normal situation, police officers in a disciplined police organization respect the authority structure. And where there are concerns, therefore, they raise that matter with their immediate superiors and so forth. That's how a policing structure works. Otherwise, there's a breakdown of discipline. And that discipline is essential for effective law enforcement. I also think, and we can disagree with this, about this matter, we can disagree, plainly appears we do. I think that the military and the police do not exercise political power in a democracy. So we've got to be careful about even the symbolism of an approach like that. For me, as a Democrat, wanting to protect the civilian space it was a concern when I saw it. The task force was effective, or it was doing its work before that press conference. Do you agree? So it can't be that the task, that the interview that was given was necessary for their work. That General Mkhwanazi intervened in the public domain because he felt that his options apparently were being exhausted. He had come before Parliament in March, he'd raised his issues, and there were obstacles to these matters being ventilated in the public domain. And you now have a situation where he has done so. I've watched, by the way, we've watched the Sahel, I've watched what's happened there, and I'm not in the position, I'm not unsympathetic to the changes that have occurred there, because it happens when democratic institutions fail, when the public loses confidence in democratic institutions. And I think that we must be careful about walking that route. Let's solve our problems this way, not by assuming that the solution is going to come from our generals, our solutions to political problems, because it's a political problem. If you talk about law enforcement, the issues are, in my view, they're about strengthening the capabilities of the police service, detective services, dealing with crime intelligence. That was not a solution to the problem of crime. He was intervening in the political space. And it might be that he felt, he must talk for himself, he might felt that he had no option. But that was a last resort. It's not something, I certainly do not, as the minister, want to encourage, and I will not encourage police officers to ignore the rank structures, the structures of discipline and decision-making within the police service. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, but Minister, we are speaking as if the general never attempted to raise things from within before he went to the media. I mean, he testified before all of us that he made attempts, he tried to reach out to the minister, and he lost confidence in the system. So we can't ignore that. Secondly, the second aspect that you are talking about of political power, that the police can't exercise political power, there is nothing that suggests that the press briefing on that day had anything to do with political power. It's concerns that were raised on the infiltration that is vast and intense within SAPS. So there's nothing that suggests that that has anything to do with political power. So I've been trying to establish nexus between your concerns and what transpired on the 6th of July. And unfortunately, I'm failing to connect the two. But because of time, let me move to another question, because
To deal with your issue. Because with respect, I mean, did I not say that he had appeared in Parliament on the 5th of January and it raised his concerns, and that what might justify his decision was precisely that he felt that the important matters that needed to be ventilated in the public domain in exceptional circumstances, that he wasn't getting that hearing, those matters were not being ventilated. So on that matter, that one we are in agreement. So no point, no reason to emphasize the point as if we are not in agreement. On the second matter, we don't agree. We don't agree. I think that there ought to be there's a separation, political powers exercised here by elected representatives. That's how our system should work. When it's not working, then people will take extraordinary measures, and that is a slippery slope. So what I'm saying is strengthen your democratic institutions so that it's not necessary. Fight corruption. Protect the integrity of your institutions. Then it won't be necessary for General Mkonazi to take the extraordinary steps that he did. And I'm saying to you, it might well turn out that he was completely justified. So in doing what he did. There too we can agree, can't we?
okay. Now let's move to another one, Minister. On the 29th of August, you issue a statement in which you were talking about the remarks that were made by the National Commissioner. And you came in SAPS because of an abnormal situation that was alleged to be prevalent. So you came in to rescue the situation as a minister. That is the summary of my thought. Now, the National Commissioner makes a remark, and then you engaged him through a statement. Without even, because a statement is not only addressed to the department, but it's addressed to the whole world. So the first thing you do, without calling him to a meeting first, you issue a statement, you engage him through a statement so that everybody in the world can see that you are engaging each other in a manner that you are engaging each other. Now, do you think that was appropriate? Were you not maybe supposed to, since you were called to rescue the situation, to rise above, even if the commissioner was wrong, but to call him to a meeting and say, Commissioner, what are your concerns? Let's discuss here. I'm here to resolve all the concerns that you have. And then out of that initiative, you reach an amicable solution.
Honourable Member, thanks for the question. I assume that I assume that you've read my statement. But if you have read my statement, you have to consider why I am puzzled by the question. So In the documents before you, my statement and the annexes, there's my letter of the 20th of August. In your
Yes,
preparation...
I've seen the letter.
Right, okay. Well, that's why I'm puzzled by your question. You say, I didn't meet him. My letter says, I have discussed this matter with you in 2 meetings. Do you see that?
Yes, yes. No, I've seen the letter.
Right.
You can speak.
Okay. So I did meet him.
Yes.
Okay? I say the second one occurred in the presence of the Provincial Commissioner of KwaZulu-Natal, Lieutenant General Mkwanazi. This matter has generated some public interest. I requested your opinion on the matter and asked for an update on how this matter was being handled, how it should be handled going forward, and I would appreciate your written response. This is after failing in our verbal communications to reach clarity. Please advise on when I can expect your response. I'm the Minister. I write to the National Commissioner on the 20th of August after having several engagements attempting to understand a matter of crucial importance to the public. I write to them on the 20th of August. I don't get the report. The General issues a public statement, wasn't a private statement, it was a public statement covered in the media about what he has done with the dockets. What I had been told is that the task team had been disbanded and that the dockets were being redistributed. What he says publicly is that the dockets have been sent back to KwaZulu-Natal, and it now turns out from his testimony that they had taken the decision earlier. Now, I got his report sometime later, after he issued that public statement and after receiving my letter. Now, you might want to dwell on this matter. What did I then do? Yes, I issued that public statement. I'm the Minister. I expect the Commissioner to communicate properly with me and to answer questions, to respond to my requests, my lawful requests, if you want to put it that way, right? Now, after that, so I think perhaps, with respect, member, you are flogging a dead horse, because we met subsequently. We issued what is the statement on the 2nd of September was a joint statement. Statement is before you. What does that statement say? That statement said, we met together, we discussed our issues in a mature manner, we agreed that we have to treat each other with respect, respecting each other's roles, and that was the end of the matter.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've asked me questions about what happened on the 6th of July, long before I was appointed, and you expressed some interest in my immediate responses as a private citizen, which of course I ventilated publicly, and which I do not withdraw.
Yes.
I've said so. And on this matter, in my statement, in the annexes, and in the questions, in the evidence that was led, I dealt with the matters that you are now returning to, and I clarified those matters.
Yeah, no, the reason why I was asking you about the events of the 6th of July is because you made a remark about them. So you invited the question. Now, two, I don't know what makes you to be convinced that I've not read your letter. I've read it and I understand what is entailed in your letter. The meeting that you talk about came after the fact. My concern here is on the 29th of August, where as a minister, you issued a letter. A statement. The letter that you issued on the 20th requests for a report from the commissioner on the status of the PKTT. And then you don't get that report. The national commissioner makes remarks and then you reply to his remarks by a statement. And in your statement, you talk about a very sensitive issue, the issue of dockets, and that your expectation was that the dockets will go to the commission that was established by the president. Now, I'm saying to you, I never think I have not read anything. I've read everything here, so I'm not going to collapse by trying to make me appear as a person who's not prepared. I'm well prepared for you here. Now, you write a statement, you talk about dockets, which is a very sensitive issue, which required you to call the National Commissioner in one office to say, National Commissioner, I've been called here to intervene as an acting minister. And you don't do that, you just issue a statement. So do you still think that was appropriate for you, Minister, to engage the National Commissioner through a statement on sensitive issues which relate to dockets?
Yes, you are allowed, you can respond.
Thank you. So I'm going to try once more. I had a series of engagements with the National Commissioner from the time of my appointment on the question whether the PKTT still exists, and if not, what had happened to the dockets. Why? Because the dockets contained evidence of ongoing investigations of assassinations. I and the public, and particularly the families of those who had been murdered, have an interest in the integrity of those investigations. I have reported that the Commissioner informed me that while he didn't agree with the decision, the instruction he received from the Minister Nkunu, he had disestablished the PKTT and redistributed those dockets. Now, where were those dockets? Were they with General Sabia? Where were those dockets? I asked, where are those dockets? If you have, he told me, and it's in his statement as well, disestablished and then a phased reallocation of those dockets, eventually to end up with the murder and robbery squads. That's what he said. I'm the minister. I have a right to find out, to ask those questions and to get honest answers. When it came to a point on the 20th, and I say to him in a written communication now, because I believe in doing things in writing, but despite that, I still seem not to be able to clarify what happened. So I write to him, it's on the record before you. I write to him and I say, now I want a plan. I want you to tell me in writing what has happened with the PKTT and these dockets. By the way, a week later, I did get that report. So the Commissioner understood that it was appropriate for him to give me the report I requested. The day after, I'd then come to the point where I thought I now have to state my concerns and my requests in writing. That public statement was made, which was contradicted what had been said to me, what had been communicated to me verbally. Now, you might consider that to be acceptable. It's not acceptable.
Okay, can I?
Hang on, I'm not done. I'm not done. And then what did I do? I didn't allow that matter to become a seething point of discontent and division in the department. I met with him, we discussed the matter respectfully, and I issued with him a joint statement. We issued a joint statement. So there is no issue as he himself has said, between the National Commission and I on this matter. The matter is closed.
Okay. No, it's fine if you don't see anything wrong with engaging the National Commissioner through a statement. That's okay. Let me move to another question because of time. There's one aspect that I agree with you on in your statement, wherein you say that in your view there will be a need for the continued existence of the PKTT, considering the fact that there will be local government elections next year. I'm not quoting you verbatim, but is that what you are saying in your statement? Now, the minister here, when he was alluding to his reasons for the disbandment of the task team, spoke about the budgetary concerns that he had. Now, don't you have any budgetary concerns? I mean, if you continue to be a minister until next year, because we don't know when this thing of acting will end, maybe you will act until 2029. Now, if you continue to act maybe until next year towards the elections, then how are you going to address these budgetary concerns if really they are in existence? Chair, can I throw these questions so that I won't come back because of time? That is number one. No, but Chair, there's 4 minutes that was chowed by Skosana when he was asking a follow-up question. It means you are not paying attention
The
to
honourable member, your
time.
time is up.
No, but Chair, 4 minutes was taken by Skosana. I was counting for myself.
That is exactly what I'm saying. What time is it now?
No, but 4 minutes has not ended. How many chairs? Yeah, I'm talking to you, Chair. Then the last question, Minister. The last question is, during the course of your acting, have you received any complaints from members of the public about the PKTT, since we are saying it is still in existence now? Are there any complaints that you have received? Thank you very much.
Chair, proceed.
Yes, you can proceed.
Thanks, Chair. I indicated in my statement that I'm aware that there has been, in the public domain, by the House, some criticism, but I have not received any complaints, and I have said in my statement that I think, from what I have been able to discern, there are practices that the PKTT implemented which we can learn from in the fight against organized crime. You are right that General Dimpane, who's the CFO, raised matters is within her responsibility about the on the finances of the PKT.
Acting Minister, the time of the member is up.